Just motorsport sanctioning body, showcasing speeds in excess of 280 miles an hour and covering the quarter-mile distance in less than 5 seconds. Winston Championship Drag Racing from the NHRA. 16 times a year, drag racing's finest drivers and cars converge on the world's best racetracks, competing for over $1 million in season-ending bonus money in the Winston Drag Racing Championship Series. The 14th event, just completed, is one that will remain in the record book of all-time firsts. The inaugural Fram Super Nationals at the all-new Houston Raceway Park near Baytown, Texas, left everyone, racers and fans alike, cheering for more. The Top Fuel Eliminator story could well have been the handiwork of a Hollywood scriptwriter. Eddie Hill made the 16-car field on his final qualifying attempt, using borrowed parts and a lot of luck. Then he waded through the competition with a series of runs that were the quickest ever recorded, ending with his victory over Joe Amato in the final that was the quickest ET ever. A 4.936 second elapsed time. In spite of Hill's monumental achievements, the runner-up finish by Amato kept him in the lead for the Winston title at $150,000 cash. Funny Car Eliminator also saw the quickest time ever. In qualifying, Ed McClelland turned a 5.25 second time, but it was a consistent performance by a former national champion that won the Fram Super Nationals Funny Car crowd. Mike Dunn, driving the Joe Pisano Oldsmobile, thundered past the Cutlass driven by Bruce Larson in the final round, winning his 3rd career title. Finally, the dominance of Bob Glidden continued as the winningest driver ever in NHRA competition debuted his brand new Ford Probe in grand style. Glidden set a new national record in qualifying with a 7.277 second time, then went on to defeat longtime rival Warren Johnson in the all-time quickest side-by-side pro stock race ever, a 7.31 second time for Johnson, and with a quicker reaction at the starting line, Glidden with a 7.33 second time for his 66th career title. That win by Glidden clinched another Winston championship, with Warren Johnson holding a slight lead over Tony Christian for second. Today, the Winston Championship Trail now moves to the Duel in the Desert, the 4th annual Castrol GTX Fall Nationals at Firebird International Raceway in Phoenix, Arizona. Hello, everybody. I'm Dave McClelland, and welcome to the Valley of the Sun and the hot, dry climate of Phoenix, Arizona. A considerable change from the record-shattering atmospheric conditions we had just a couple of weeks ago in Houston, Texas. The times may be just a bit slower due to the higher altitude, but the intense competition remains for that coveted Winston Championship. For more on that story, here's my good friend, Steve Evans.
Well, David, if anybody's parachute should fail here at Firebird Raceway, I hope they bring along their snake repellent, because that's all that's down here. Well, along with myself. Okay, let's talk about the points you showed us. It's obvious that Bob Glidden can start rehearsing his winner's speech for the banquet. He has won his 9th Winston Pro Stock Championship, a record that probably will never be equaled. In Top Fuel, it looks like Joe Amato could start thinking about some investments for his $150,000 Winston bonus, but I wouldn't quite commit to the broker yet. Darrell Gwynn could possibly do it. Even Eddie Hill could come out of way left field. It's Funny Car that everybody is talking about, and it's pretty complicated. Kenny Bernstein came in with an 82-point lead over Mark Oswald. You could call this the first of a 2-race Winston series as far as that category is concerned. Bernstein qualified number 3. That's 28 bonus points. Oswald, he qualified number 7. That's 20 points. So Bernstein picked up 8 for a total of 90. But no, he didn't, because Oswald right now has top speed for Funny Cars at 269. That's a 50-point bonus if he can hold on to that. John Force has low ET for 50, so neither driver can lay title to that just yet. Earlier, before first-round action today, I talked to both drivers about, well, what it felt like and their approach. Important, critical, crucial. I can't think of an adjective strong enough to describe the situation you're in here at the Fall Nationals.
I agree with you, Steve. I can't either. It's probably the most important race of our career, the whole team's. If it do bad here, it could be over with for that Winston Championship. If you do good, then next week will be the most important one. But right now, this may be and is probably the most important.
How would you describe Dale Armstrong's approach?
Thorough, completely thorough, as it always is, but even more so this weekend. Every nut and bolt, every single ounce of energy is put into taking care of this race car, trying to anticipate any problems that may occur, that can occur, and eliminating those in advance. That's the name of the game this week.
Mark, has this Candies and Hughes team ever felt more pressure than this particular race right here, now?
Well, you know, in '84, it came down to the last race, you know, in a 3-car battle, so it's more or less the same thing. I don't think it could ever get any more.
Kenny Bernstein describes their approach as thorough. What about yours?
It's about the same thing. You know, we're just trying not to let any little thing bite us. You know, we're trying to make the most use of what we got.
Well, they've gone back to the 2-speed and the things they know. You've made some whopping changes, though.
Well, you know, we just felt that the way we've been racing the past month with the transmission, it's got such a mechanical advantage that we're always tiptoeing off the starting line and backing the motor down, and we felt that maybe with this we'd be able to use a little more of the power we have.
And now, to make the plot just a little bit thicker, in round 1 of funny car action earlier today, both Oswald and Bernstein won, and they face each other in round 2 coming up. But before that, in fact, you can hear them getting ready. Here's round 2 of Top Fuel and Dave McClelland.
Steve, they are getting ready, and here is the first pair in our second round of competition at the Castrol GTX Fall Nationals. This is Rudy Topke. He's racing against Connie Coletta. And Coletta is a story in himself, as he debuted this car about the middle of the season and has had nothing but problems with it ever since. He made a change in the drivetrain combination, and that certainly brought the car around.
And that change was the same one, Dave, that Mark Oswald alluded to in his funny car, taking out the transmission and going to a high gear only setup with the multi-phase automatic style clutches. A big sun-drenched crowd here on hand. It's in the mid-90s, tough racing conditions. Now, Rudy Topke, you've got to give this guy credit. He's a rookie driver, and there were 30 Top Fuel dragsters here, the most we've seen other than the U.S. Nationals this year. And Topke qualified number 8. A great job.
Hailing from the town of Dardanelle, Arkansas, one of the few Razorback racers in Top Fuel. From Ypsilanti, Michigan, comes Connie Coletta, the owner of Coletta Flying Services, and it's more than just a Piper Cub or two. We're talking about DC-8s and DC-10s and more for Connie Coletta.
Well, he just bought the richest man in the world's DC-8. You know what he did with all the ornate furnishings? Tore it all out so he could ship cattle.
Maybe some problems for Rudy Topke. He calls a crewman over, reaching inside the cockpit. Topke obviously needing some assistance with his seatbelt and his harness. Now everything's okay. He approaches the staging beams while Coletta in the far lane is doing the same.
In round 1, Connie Coletta beat Dan Pastorini, who fireballed an engine, and it was Rudy Topke over Paul Smith to get to this point.
A great start for both cars. And Coletta by half a car length with an elapsed time of 5.28 seconds. Puts away Rudy Topke's 5:32 as we watch again an extremely close race off the starting line.
It's the middle of the racetrack where Coletta shows his hand.
That is indicative of the high gear power of these Top Fuel dragsters. As more and more clutch is applied, the car pulls ahead until Connie Coletta wins it.
Well, Connie, a 5:28, the heat of the day, a kind of marginal racetrack, not so bad.
Yeah, well, it's not as good as I wanted to see.
Yeah.
We backed it down because we're just so scared of the track and what it's going to do. But 5:28, I'm not very happy with that right now.
Well, you make the tuning decisions as well as the driving decisions.
Yeah, and this thing, I guess I do. So I'm sort of doing both.
The high gear has brought a lot of cars around, including this one.
Yeah, we built this new car in Indy, and the race after that, we had problems with it. I couldn't get it to hook up, and it just back into the car was too light. And we put the high gear in it at Houston, and it loved it. Just come right around.
Yeah, Houston proved there's an O in here somewhere.
Someplace.
Okay. Thanks, Connie.
Coletta obviously happy with the win, but certainly looking for improved performance next round. The 1988 NHRA Castrol GTX Fall Nationals is being brought to you by Castrol GTX Motor Oil, the motor oil engineered for today's smaller cars, and by Goodyear Eagle Tires. Goodyear, because there really is a difference. And by Fram Bendix Auto Life, which are all quality products of Allied Automotive. Back in Kenny Bernstein's pit area. Crew Chief Dale Armstrong overseeing the thorough preparation of that Buick funning car as it gets ready to meet the Ford Thunderbird of Mark Oswald. The race of the year for these two drivers coming up shortly at the Fall Nationals.
Raceway in Chandler, Arizona, just east of Phoenix. I'm Steve Evans along with Dave McClelland. And here you see the diver, as he's called, the crewman responsible for the bottom end maintenance on the Candies and Hughes Thunderbird 20 car driven by Mark Oswald. The only team that can stop Kenny Bernstein from winning his 4th consecutive Winston Championship. It'll be a few minutes before that titanic duel. Dave McClelland, right now it's time for race number 2, round 2, top fuel eliminator. And there is the quickest and fastest in the sport.
This is Eddie Hill, the #1 qualifier here at Phoenix. He has absolutely dominated this field in qualifying, as he has in practically every racetrack he's set foot on. He is racing against the Castrol GTX Special of Gary Ormsby.
Now, Ormsby qualified #5. In the first round, he beat Jim Head. And in doing so, he got lane choice. He had a quicker lap time in round 1 than did Eddie Hill. Eddie Hill has won 3 NHRA National Championship events in his career, and they have all come this season. One he will never forget. He has the fastest speed ever at 288 miles per hour, the quickest lap time ever, as we told you from Houston 2 weeks ago, at 493. Boy, what a yellow machine that is.
The two crewmen for Eddie Hill bracketing the cockpit of the car as they walk back. They keep a close eye on that engine, making sure that no leakage starts. Nothing to prevent Eddie Hill from tackling Gary Ormsby in this second round race at the Fall Nationals. Ormsby qualified, as Steve said, in the #5 spot, and in doing so, with his victory over Jim Head, selected the lane the furthest from the camera. He had the choice over Eddie Hill, who, as the #1 qualifier, raced in the first round, the #9 qualifier, which turned out to be the other 4-second car in the world, Mr. Gene Snow out of Fort Worth, Texas. As we look at that first round race once again, Eddie Hill smoked the tires right off the starting line, and for Gene Snow, disaster struck for the second time this weekend. Afterwards, Steve took a look.
That engine block was completely destroyed. It is not repairable. It happened in Gene Snow's final qualifying run yesterday. You saw what happened in round #1 here today. Another engine explosion, and Gene, this one almost as bad.
Yeah, well, the thing is, we really don't know what's causing it. We've lost, maybe half a dozen engines in the last couple of months. We're still looking for the problem.
Some so-called experts say, well, it's the big high gear that's doing it.
I don't think so. I think I've got my fuel delivery problem a little bit messed up right now. The car's got an awful, a lot of horsepower, but we're pushing it too hard. We're going to have to back off a little bit.
Well, I tell you, your old friend Raymond Beadle had a slogan, and you know what I mean.
Yeah, the old deal, like if the money hold out, the luck will come. It's getting close.
Okay, thanks, Gene.
All right.
An extremely expensive weekend for Gene Snow. For Eddie Hill, already he's got the track record in his pocket. That is the 5:06 recorded in qualifying. Now in round #2, he confronts Gary Ormsby. Ormsby with the lane choice in the far lane of the racetrack. Eddie Hill nearest the camera. Ormsby smokes the tires. And Eddie Hill with the quickest lap time of eliminations thus far of 5.11. His speed over 271 miles an hour, using up a lot of this racetrack to get that bright yellow car stopped. As we look again, Hill and Ormsby were close at the 16th mile. Then Ormsby started smoking the tires. Hill advanced on for the all-important win, putting him into the semifinals. The next pair, engines started on the line. There's Joe Amato, the man gunning for the Winston Championship. He's currently in the lead, trying to hold off the likes of Darrell Gwynn and Eddie Hill. His TRW Special has recorded an elapsed time of 5.00 seconds. That set a couple of weeks ago in Houston, Texas. Racing against Amato will be Dennis Forcell from Minneapolis. Let's go to Steve with Eddie Hill.
Well, Eddie Hill uses the emergency runoff as he has throughout this event. When you go as quick as you do, 5:11, 271, you need a long racetrack.
11 today? Good Lord. I'm speechless. I don't know what to say. I didn't think there's any way that track could hold 11. Ormsby had lane choice, and he put me in a bad lane, and what can I say?
Doesn't seem to be a bad lane for this yellow car.
Well, a lot of times I guess that's true. The car works awful well. Yeah, it really does. And we need it here, don't we?
See you in the semifinals.
Yeah, thank you.
What a car.
What a driver. If you were to call Central Casting and ask for an actor or someone to play a grizzled prospector, Eddie Hill would foot the bill as well as anybody. This is Dennis Forssell at the wheel of the Cable Value Network special.
Dennis Forssell is a very successful businessman from Minneapolis, Minnesota. Had some health problems earlier this year, but is feeling fine and fit back in the cockpit. To call this man, Joe Amato, a successful businessman would be a gross understatement. He has something like 1,600 employees in his auto parts enterprises.
Forssell in the near lane, Amato in the far lane. Tim Richards, the crew chief on Joe Amato's race car, regarded by many as one of the premier top fuel or nitro-burning crew chiefs in the country.
Well, Dennis Forssell has a good wrench in Larry Frazier.
A great start by Forssell, but Amato just powers by for the win. 5.30 seconds at 275 miles an hour. Got lots of speed, but did not have an elapsed time as good as Eddie Hill. Hill continues to hold on to the quick time of eliminations. As we look again, you can see about 1/100th of a second. That's what the reaction timers tell us. That was the head start gained at the starting line by Dennis Forssell. But then some problems set in for Forssell, and Amato just pulled away to take the victory that advances him into the semifinals. A haze of tire smoke coming off Amato's race car, but he was able to recover quickly, and by a multi-car length lead, wins it.
Joe Amato, the win light, that's all important. But I don't have to tell you that 530s are not going to win this drag race, ultimately.
Well, Steve, look at the tire. We were spinning the tire down the track, and we tore the center right out of it. You know, we're just going to have to tune up the wing a little better and try and get more downforce. The track is treacherous out there. We're just glad to get the win light for the championship points.
Okay, we'll see you in the semifinals.
Thank you.
Let's take a look at that tire. Just in the center of the right tire, you can see what he means. The rubber is worn away. That's not a tire failure. That's just abuse to which they were never built to sustain.
Amato will have a chance to change tires before the semifinal round. Kenny Bernstein's crew has practically rebuilt his race car, getting it set to match up against Mark Oswald. That's coming up shortly. Here's Central GTX Fall Nationals. Race car. It is still in pieces. The crew methodically putting that racing engine back together. Not quite as far along as his opponent Kenny Bernstein in that all-important second round race in Funny Car Eliminator coming up in just a few moments. On the racetrack, the last pair of cars in the second round of Top Fuel Eliminator. In the far lane, driving the Miller High Life car owned by Larry Miner, is Frank Hawley. And just coming into view after his burnout is the Budweiser Special of Darrell Gwynn.
Now with Joe Amato, Dave, already headed for the semifinals, Darrell Gwynn knows he cannot lose this race and have any hope for the Winston Championship.
Gwynn qualified very well. With a 5.12 second elapsed time, he held down the number 2 spot. Hawley is the operator of the drag racing school in Gainesville, Florida. He teaches other people how to do this, and he does it extremely well himself, qualifying number 6 with a 5.22 and defeating Earl Whiting in round number 1.
Hawley could be the spoiler in this whole Top Fuel Winston points contest, David. You well know. He's not racing for points. He didn't start the series until mid-year. No advantage to either driver off the mark.
Frank Hawley pulls ahead by half a car length. Frank Hawley defeats Darrell Gwynn and puts a damper on Darrell Gwynn's hopes for a Winston Championship. You see the elation shown by Hawley as he gives himself a bit of a round of applause. Looking again, you see both cars left the starting line at identically the same moment.
And in this race, speeds tell the story. 20 miles an hour difference. Frank Hawley, 277, Gwynn, 257.
That sets up the semifinal pairing for this Castrol GTX Fall Nationals. Ani Coletta against Frank Hawley. Frank has the choice of lanes by virtue of the quicker elapsed time in round number 2. Eddie Hill goes off against Joe Amato, with Hill having the lane choice. Let's go to Steve with Frank Hawley.
Joe Amato is down here watching with us, and I guarantee that you are on his A party list after that one.
Well, I know. He needs it. Darrell's been giving him such a fight. In fact, at the first of the year, I actually picked Darrell to win the World Championship. And it's been a heck of a season. And, you know, I hate to be the spoiler for Darrell, but we're all pretty good friends, and I think Joe needs a break, too.
All right, see you in the semis. And that man will be going for the Winston Championship the full season next year. Frank Hawley.
Steve Darrell Gwynn looking a bit dejected in defeat. He has won 5 national event titles this season, and at the moment resides in second place in the Winston Championship. On the starting line, doing their burnouts, the 2 funny cars that kick off round number 2 action. It is Art Hendy against Chuck Etchell.
And Dave, I'm sure both of these drivers feel very fortunate to be here in round number 2. Earlier today, in round number 1, Chuck Etchell's machine in the near lane from New England went up against one of the toughest customers in all of funny car drag racing, that being Ed the Ace McClelland. Remember, he was the low qualifier just 2 weeks ago at the Super Nationals. Here was that race. Etchell's was in the near lane, McCullough in the far lane. McCullough had a tremendous advantage on paper based on qualifying the last time. Suddenly, the power went away in McCullough's Oldsmobile. The blower belt had come off, and he helplessly sat strapped in that car as Etchell smoked the tires.
If Etchell's thought he was lucky, the man he races in round number 2, Art Hendy, has to think he's got a corner on the market. He raced Dale Poldy in round number 1, and it was a match of the number 6 qualifier, Poldy, against the number 14 qualifier, Hendy. The quicker of the 2 cars was in the far lane. Dale Poldy had the race won, and then the traction problems began. And Art Hendy pulled by at the finish line, advancing him with the upset into round number 2, where he now races Chuck Etchell. That's the Worsham and Hendy entry in the far lane. Etchell is in the near lane of the racetrack. Etchell's the quicker of the 2 cars.
And this is Art Hendy's first ever NHRA national event. You know he's got to be feeling the pressure. Chuck Etchell's has a first-class racing team with lots of experience.
Hendy cautiously staging as he rolls forward into those light beams across the starting line. Now it is Etchell's turn. So gingerly they stage and then explode off the starting line. Entire smoke for Chuck Etchell, but Hendy is slowly making his way down the racetrack. Chuck Etchell advances to the semifinals of Funny Car Eliminator. We'll be coming right back to Firebird Raceway and the Castrol GTX Fallnationals. Facilities in the world contrasting with the tans and the earth tones of the desert surrounding Firebird Raceway. This facility today dedicated to NHRA Championship drag racing. Now let's go to Steve with Chuck Etchell.
I always empathize for a guy like Chuck Etchell because it's a long ways from New England to the Valley of the Sun in Phoenix, Arizona, but you made it work in the second round and you had to play with that throttle all the way down.
Yeah, well, the track in the middle seems to be giving our car trouble, and a lot of other guys. We're just happy to be here, though.
At what point do you decide you're going to get off the throttle, and how do you decide to get back in it again?
Well, I was actually a little late doing it that time, and smoke started to come in the car, and I said, I think that Paul Smith's going to be mad here.
Your mechanic.
Yeah.
Well, a great job, and I'm sure Paul will get it tuned up for the semis.
Well, we hope.
Always good to see you have some success, my friend.
Thank you.
Chuck Etchell will take a win, Steve, any way he can get it. With tires smoking or not, it doesn't matter because he now advances to the semifinals. This is Bruce Larson racing against Tom Hoover.
In the near lane, Bruce Larson Davis, another one of those racers like Eddie Hill, who will never forget the summer of 1988. After a 25, 30-year career as a drag racer, he won his first NHRA national event, the Cajun Nationals.
Tom Hoover's career dates back even further than Bruce Larson's. When he started driving top-fuel dragsters, the old Ma and Pa Hoover car, it has been 10 years, since 1979, in fact, that he has been in the winner's circle. Larson had a number 4 qualifying time of a 5:52 and defeated Scott Coletta in the first round. Tom Hoover had a 5:55. That was good for number 8. He beat Jim Dunn in round number 1.
And you can see how closely they were qualified, Dave. 4 qualifying positions separated these two drivers, but only 3 1/100ths of a second.
Hoover in the far lane. Bruce Larson staging in the near lane. Starter Buster Couch intently looking over both cars, making sure the drivers are prepared and the cars are in good shape for the run down the quarter mile.
Horsepower estimated at 4,000 with nitromethane fuel, 2,100 pounds. The most angry race cars in all of motorsports, in my opinion.
A slight advantage for Larson in the Sentry Tack Engages car. But Hoover pulls out a big win, 5 0.52-second elapsed time. His speed, 252 miles an hour. The losing time for Larson was a 5:55. That just reversed the times they had set in qualifying. As we look again, you can see that little bit of an advantage, about 0.15 of a second going to Larson. But by the time they reached the end of the quarter-mile racetrack, Tom Hoover was ahead to stay. Back at the start of that quarter-mile track, our next pair getting ready to go. This is Mike Dunn. Dunn, of course, the most recent winner on the NHRA Trail, taking home the title at the Fram Super Nationals at the wheel of the Pisano Oldsmobile. Racing against him, driving the Castrol GTX Oldsmobile, is the very personable John Force. His crew chief, Austin Coyle, directing the activities as they bring that engine to life.
Now, as we mentioned earlier, Force is the quickest car at this event at 5:42. But that is an event record, not a track record. Firebird Raceway is really the closest thing that Southern California has to a major racing facility. This is John Force's home track. He runs here all the time. He ran in the 30s a year ago here.
Steve, with the temperature the way it is today and the atmosphere not conducive to making lots of horsepower, it may be difficult for John Force to run in the 5:30s.
Mike Dunn staying with the two-speed transmission, much like Kenny Bernstein is. Doesn't want to change anything in their formula that took them to the winner's circle 2 weeks ago at the Super Nationals down at Houston. When qualifying was over and John Force had the pole, I chatted with him in the pits. He's always a lot of fun. John, you got a $3,000 bonus for qualifying on the pole at 5:42, but Austin Coyle, your mechanic crew chief, took the check.
Steve, I didn't get anything. This is a new year, and it's $3,500 for low ET. And you're right. Coyle's getting married in January, and I got stupid and stuck my neck out and told him he could have the money if he could make this heap run. And he made it run, and I'm going home broke again.
Steve, sometimes you wonder, what does John Force mean? The only thing I can figure is congratulations to Austin Coyle on his impending marriage, and tough luck for John Force, as he has no money to get home on.
But Force did have a contingent on that. If he cancels the wedding, Force gets the money back.
Mike Dunn in the near lane. The escape hatch coming down as he gets ready to drive his Oldsmobile back up into the staging beam. John Force in the far lane, under the direction of Coyle, his crew chief, doing exactly the same thing. The number 1 qualifier and the number 5 qualifier meeting here in round number 2 at the Fall National. Both cars up in smoke. Mike Dunn recovers first, and with a cloud of smoke providing the backdrop, Mike Dunn, with an unimpressive 589, gets a most impressive win light.
And Dave, this is a little bit of a surprise because John Force, we've talked before, has some very trick brakes on that car. He just pushes a button to control tire smoke like that.
He did not control it very well this time. Mike Dunn had his problems with loss of traction, but he recovered quicker and drove his car across the finish line ahead of John Force.
Well, counting his winning race in Houston 2 weeks ago, that is Mike Dunn's 6th consecutive win light, but this one came a little bit differently.
Yeah, you know, it wasn't pretty, but we'll take it.
589.
Yeah, I got a little loose and had to pedal it, and obviously he must have gotten the same kind of trouble, and we just kind of slid on by.
Exactly the same kind. But you knew there was the potential for that when you left the starting line.
Yeah, because we stepped her up a little bit. We tried an early lockup, and it blew the tires loose as soon as the clutch locked up. And he didn't make a move on me. I saw his fender, so I pedaled a little bit, went by him, so I knew he must have been in trouble too. And then I just threw in high gear and tried to pull the motor down, drive it down through there, see what happens. And luckily, we got the win.
And some good things happened.
Yeah.
When you drive a race car that has a transmission, you can pull it into high gear and drag that motor down. Back in the pit, they are working on Joe Amato's Top Fuel dragster. The points leader will be challenging Eddie Hill in the semifinals of Top Fuel Eliminator. That'll be coming up a little bit later on here at the Castrol GTX Fall Nationals.
Firebird Raceway, the moment is at hand. The race all of the fans in these stands have been waiting for. Kenny Bernstein, the Budweiser King Buick, up against Mark Oswald, the Motorcraft Thunderbird. Years from now, Dave, we may look back at this very confrontation and say that was the turning point in the summer of '88.
Steve, as you explained to us earlier, a rather complicated point system leaves these two racers separated by less than 100 points at this moment. There is $150,000 up for grabs in the season-ending Winston bonus and that goes to the champion. The payout for second place, while good, is far less.
We talk about pressure on drivers. What about a man like that? Dale Armstrong. He is ultimately responsible for the performance of that automobile, and he knows it.
And it performed very well. Qualified with a 5.52 second elapsed time. That was good enough to put Kenny Bernstein in the number 3 spot. Earlier, just before they brought the car to the staging lane, Steve had a chance to talk to an intense Dale Armstrong.
Dale, certainly the biggest race of the year, if not of your career, on a less than perfect racetrack. You don't have lane choice. What do you do?
Oh, Steve, we have to just calm it down out in the middle. So really what I'm doing now is we're running a test of the timing of where you bring the clutches in. So we have to not only calm down where the clutch comes in, but also probably bring it in later, farther down the track. So we're really just going to leave the power the same and everything and just try and make the tires stick better by bringing the clutch in later.
Hope it works for you.
So do I.
Mark Oswald qualified number 7 with a 5.55. Steve talked to his crew chief, Leonard Hughes.
Leonard, you've had a couple of opportunities this season to take advantage of Bernstein going out early. Now you meet him head-to-head, and you've got lane choice on maybe a less than ideal racetrack. What about it?
Well, it depends a lot on what happens, too. If somebody oils it again, it'd be a big advantage. If not, I don't know. And looks like every time we stumble, he stumbles. So if we do good, he does good. And it's kind of, who knows?
This car has been an animal for Mark Oswald to control, spinning the tires all the way to the finish line. Can you stop that?
We did that time, but we slowed it down too much. So we got to find somewhere in the middle. It was kind of weak that time.
Should be a great race. Good luck.
Thank you.
On the surface, drag racing appears to be so simple. But I think the comments of Leonard Hughes and Dale Armstrong belie that. The intense rivalry between the crew chiefs, the competition between the two drivers, the winner here will make a big move forward in the Winston Championship points chase. Bernstein in the near lane. Oswald in the far lane. Starting line to finish line, this one was Kenny Bernstein. His elapsed time, 5.54 seconds. His speed, 264 miles an hour. The losing time for Oswald was a 5.63. And look at Bernstein show his emotion.
And this was won, I believe, David, by the crew chiefs. Dale Armstrong had the better handle on that clutch. Leonard Hughes more concerned with Oswald spinning the tires.
As you can see at the middle of the racetrack, it is all Bernstein. And even more so at the finish line by more than a car length. Kenny Bernstein advances into the semifinals where he has lane choice over Mike Dunn. The second pair in the semifinal round of the Fall Nationals finds Chuck Etchells racing Tom Hoover, with Hoover having the lane choice. Let's go to the far end of the racetrack. Steve Evans is with the winner.
Well, that won't win the Winston Championship, but Kenny Bernstein, you can take a good, deep breath.
Thanks. I needed that.
5.54.
Well, that's good. Dale and the guys made a lot of changes in the car to get it down there from smoking the tires. But whenever you race, Mark, it's a battle. The red cars, and like you said, it doesn't win the championship, but I sure feel a lot better right now.
And it opens a big door that you've got to drive through. You can win more points today.
Yeah, we've got to take advantage of a situation now. If we can go another couple of 3 rounds, that only makes next week's World Finals easier for us in the sense that we've got some padding and some lead. Nothing's easy. They're all able to beat you out here.
One of the toughest races you've ever been in?
It's the hardest race mentally I've ever been in, bobbed in 20 years of drag racing. The hardest, mentally.
I can't add a thing to that.
The emotion showing in the voice of Kenny Bernstein, a man who could be master of his own destiny. The crew coming down for a celebration that will be short-lived as they have to go back to the pits and get the car ready for the semifinals. And we're at Firebird Raceway just outside Phoenix, Arizona for the 4th annual Castrol GTX Fall Nationals. The story of this race could be called Crew Chiefs Under Fire. Steve is with the next one under the gun.
With one more win light, crew chief Tim Richards can save the Joe Amato team all the anguish you went through last year after this race.
Yeah, that certainly was anguish, and we thought we were going to have a little bit more of it this year at that first round with LaHaye. He's a tough customer, and you really don't know what's going to happen. But
We'll take them as as they come. Our year has been like this. We haven't been the most powerful car out there, but we've been the car to put the most runs in.
And you've had one of the best drivers.
Well, certainly one of the best drivers. He's bailed us out of a lot of jams.
Eddie Hill with a 511, he'll be double tough.
He's going to have to slow down about a 517, 518 before I think we can have a chance of beating him.
Great job today, though.
Well, we tried.
And succeeded in many ways.
It was just a year ago that Dick LaHaye defeated Joe Amato at this race, and that set up the climactic run when Joe Amato defeated Dick LaHaye at the Winston Finals to claim the Winston Championship.
Well, this year, Joe Amato took care of Dick LaHaye in the very first round. Okay, it is time for Pro Stock. First race in the second round. We often call these the factory hot rods, but they may be the most sophisticated cars as far as construction is concerned in all of drag racing. 2,350 pounds, 500 cubic inch maximum size engines, 2 4-barrel carburetors, racing gasoline. These are cars that the fans here at Firebird can truly identify with.
A Pontiac and a Chevrolet. Harry Scribner, driving the Chevy Camaro out of Simi Valley, California, won his first and only national event title earlier this season at Sears Point, California. Against him is Nick Nicolas from Jackson Heights, New York. He's at the wheel of the Pontiac Trans Am. He has yet to win an NHRA national event title.
Nicolas barely qualified in the 16th spot. He hole shot at Tony Christian in round number 1, and he's got a tremendous hole shot going for them here. Either that or Scribner was dead late.
A big advantage off the starting line for Nicolas, and he parlays it into a win at the finish line. Nicolas with a 7.58 second elapsed time. His speed, 183 miles an hour. And Steve, you were exactly right. Harry Scribner was late. He had a 7.55, a quicker time, but yet he lost. Here we're riding with Bob Glidden, our in-car camera showing the actions as Bob goes through the burnout procedure. Racing against him is Butch Leal at the wheel of the Delco Battery Pontiac Trans Am.
And of course, Leal is an old nemesis for Mr. Glidden. There you see all of the levers that are necessary to shift through the 4 speeds in that Ford Probe, which is undefeated. It debuted 2 weeks ago. We told you earlier, set the national record, went on and won the race. And Glidden says that this car is still under development. The competition hopes that the development is over for the man from Indiana. Butch Leal, he is so proud of his starting line reflexes, and Dave, deservedly so.
Leal should also be proud of the performance of his Pontiac at this 1,300-foot altitude racetrack. He qualified in the number 5 spot and defeated Frank Iaconio in the first round. That extremely slick motorcraft Ford Probe of Bob Glidden has yet to see anything but a win light.
Look how twitchy Glidden is in the car, waiting for that flash of yellow, and he is off the mark. But Butch Leal is in front of him. Right now, Glidden can see Leal.
And he's watching Leal fall back as the Ford Probe pulls ahead at the finish line and by just a matter of inches takes the victory. Glidden deploys the parachute and brings the car to a stop at a 7.50 second elapsed time. A close race. Leal had a tremendous advantage at the start, 0.04 of a second. He took a shot at that Christmas tree, and it paid off. It put him out ahead of Bob Glidden.
But at the top of the racetrack, a combination of horsepower and aerodynamics in that new Probe paid off. Did Butch Leal ever test Bob Glidden on this day?
Well, Steve, Bob certainly got an A on this exam. In the pits, crew chief Fuzzy Carter checking over the tire that he hopes will carry his driver Eddie Hill to victory over Joe Amato. Semifinals of the Fall Nationals.
Park. You see the dirt oval and the drag boat race course over there and the drag strip, and there's a road course. This is truly a multi-purpose facility. And in the pits with Kenny Bernstein, that is computer wizard Ray Alley checking over the greetings and the information from the previous run to try to help crew chief Dale Armstrong improve on the next one when they race Mike Dunn.
The crew reassembling the engine in Kenny Bernstein's car, while on the starting line, we're still in round number 2 of Pro Stock Eliminator. Joe Sway at the wheel of the Pontiac Trans Am, racing against Bruce Allen in the Levi Garrett Chevy Beretta out of the Rare & Morrison racing team. Joe Sway, hailing from Summerdale, New Jersey, qualified in the 15th spot, while his competitor, Bruce Allen, qualified number 3 with a fine 7.48 second elapsed time. But that was over qualifying. Today, the temperature's considerably different.
Now, you may have a Chevy Beretta that looks a lot like Bruce Allen. Yours is front-wheel drive. NHRA allows them to go to rear-wheel drive in these Pro Stock cars.
The advantage off the starting line was Joe Sway, but he loses it practically immediately. Bruce Bruce Allen powers by with a 7.52 second elapsed time. Something went wrong after Joe Sway left the starting line. He had a big advantage, a hole shot, but Allen had an easy win. On the starting line now is the Oldsmobile of Warren Johnson. Johnson racing against Kenny Delco. Delco utilizing the body style of a Pontiac Trans Am Firebird.
The chassis tuning is so critical on these cars. It's not that way with the funny cars in the dragster. They're just solid suspension. But here they've got coil-over shocks and all kinds of adjustments to try to get that car to just carry that front end a few inches off the ground off the start. Kenny Delco beat Kenny Koretsky in round 1 after having qualified in the number 6 position. Warren Johnson, full-time professional for many years out of Duluth, Georgia, with the AC Delco Oldsmobile. He qualified number 2 and is the man here Bob Glidden fears the most.
You know, Kenny Delco at the wheel of Flip Speed Shop Special, that's the Pontiac, has got to be concerned about Warren Johnson. While Delco ran a 7.50 in qualifying, Johnson was 0.03 of a second quicker, and that can be almost a car length or more at the finish line.
All season long, Johnson has had the quicker elapsed times, double the better reactive times, but not today. They leave dead even.
500 cubic inch Oldsmobile race engine pulling the Cutlass through at a time of 7.50 seconds. His speed 185 miles an hour. Warren Johnson goes into the semifinals.
Look just how even this start was. You'll see the front wheels on both cars rise at exactly the same time. And there's that balance I was talking about. They both had that down perfectly. Just before the shift into second gear, they settled back to earth.
As they passed the halfway point on the racetrack, Johnson began to make the move. As you can see, he pulled ahead and by a car length maintained his lead over Kenny Delco. That sets up the semifinals of the Fall Nationals Pro Stock Eliminator. Nick Nicolas will go against Warren Johnson. Johnson having the choice of lanes. The other pair in the semifinals finds that classic Ford versus Chevy battle. Bob Glidden against Bruce Allen, with Glidden having the lane choice. On the starting line, our first pair of semifinalists in Top Fuel. It will be Connie Coletta against Frank Hawley, coming up next at the Fall Nationals.
We're back at Firebird Raceway. You're looking at the crew for Mike Dunn, putting that funny car back together to face Kenny Bernstein. If they're short-handed, I'm sure Mike can always go over to the Mark Oswald camp. They'd be happy to loan him all the help they possibly could.
Oswald looking for any break possible in his battle with Kenny Bernstein for that Winston Championship. The burnouts are completed for our first pair of Top Fuel dragsters in the semifinal round. Connie Coletta will be racing against Frank Hawley. That's Scott Coletta, the second generation of the Coletta family that sits inside a championship drag racing car. He drives the funny car portion of the Coletta team. Frank Hawley at the wheel of one of Larry Minor's race cars. He also owns the car driven by Ed McCulloch, and Dick LaHaye is part of that Minor racing team.
Minor came here with 3 cars. 2 of them have already fallen, Ed McCulloch and Dick LaHaye. It is Frank Hawley who now has to carry the banner of the team from San Jacinto, California. Hawley, who, as Dave said, teaches drag racing, so he really prides himself on trying to get off the mark first. But it's Coletta away.
Hawley, though, driving around Connie Coletta to advance into the finals. 5.17 second elapsed time, a very creditable elapsed time. Hawley is happy as he gets ready to turn that car off the track, and he goes into the final round. Watching again, you see the advantage that was built up by Connie Coletta. Nearly 0.02 of a second advantage. That's most unusual to find someone getting out on Frank Hawley. But watch as the power of Hawley's car began to take charge. And on this run, he set top speed of the meet. Steve?
As a man with a tremendous sense of history, Frank Hawley, I can tell you, you have just blasted the all-time speed record at 282.
Well, that's what we were talking about the round before. Larry's made some changes on the car. We figured we can't possibly get this thing to run the early part of the track, so we've just been working on the top side. And the 277 was probably a middle light. Shut it off, and I drove it a little bit further against Conrad.
Well, that march on the big end helped the ET to a 517.
Well, that's before we left the trailer. Larry said, what do you think? I said, we're going to run a 19. And that's all we're looking at. Eddie Hill is a tough competitor, Joe Amato, but sometimes it's your day, and maybe this is it for us.
I'll let you find a cold towel.
Thank you very much.
Into the Firebird track record book goes Frank Hawley with that incredible 282-mile-an-hour charge. While back on the starting line, two drivers that are concerned primarily with elapsed time.
And Winston points. If Joe Amato can win right now, he will have the title. He won't have to worry about next weekend. If Eddie Hill can win, on the other hand, Eddie Hill in points will go around Darrell Gwynn into the number 2 spot, have an outside chance of winning the title himself, and for sure will pick up at least $15,000 more in Winston cash than he would have in that 3rd spot.
This has been a season of recognition for Eddie Hill. Not only is he the quickest man in history, he is the first man ever to run in the 4-second bracket. Earlier today in pre-race ceremonies, Eddie Hill was presented a commemorative ring from the Krager 4-Second Club. Krager, the manufacturer of the wheels used on so many of these race cars, started a 5-second club. The late Mike Snively was the first man ever into the 5s over 15 years ago. And now Joe Harudka, the president of Mr. Gasket, the parent company of Krager, presents not only a ring to Eddie, but a pendant to Ursi.
And you saw the look of shock on Ursi's face. She had absolutely no idea that the distaff side of these racing teams would also be acknowledged. And as they did with their 5-second club, the first 8 drivers into the 4th will be so honored.
Of course, Krager, also the sponsor of the Krager Top Fuel Classic that will be run in just a couple of weeks at Pomona at the Winston Finals. $50,000 of Joe Harudka's money will be going to the winner, and you can watch it later on this year right here on ESPN.
All right, here we go. Joe Amato in the far lane. Will he be the Winston champion? He is 5 seconds away from clinching $150,000. Eddie Hill is out to prevent that.
Joe Amato smokes the tires, and Eddie Hill drives right past him. Eddie Hill moves into the number 2 spot. Joe Amato will have to wait. 5.22 seconds elapsed time. His speed, 271 miles an hour. Amato recovered quickly and ran a 5:31. But you saw what happened as we look back in replay. Eddie Hill and Joe Amato, with Hill having a slight advantage at the start. The problems for Amato came at mid-course when his car lost traction. He hazed the tires, had to left, and Eddie Hill drove past him. That sets the final. Eddie Hill against Frank Hawley, and Hawley will have the lane choice in the final round.
Eddie Hill, you're about to run us all to death meeting down here at the end of the emergence area, but you won. You've denied Joe Amato a Winston Championship celebration tonight. You'll have to wait at least a week.
Yeah, and we moved up in 2nd place now.
And that's some money.
Yeah, it is. A lot of difference. $15,000 difference between 3rd and 2nd. I love it.
A 522, you may not love that.
Oh, no, that wasn't too cool, was it? I think the thing freewheeled off the line. Maybe it didn't have quite enough rubber laid back down after they scraped it or something. We'll have to think about the final.
You had enough steam to beat Joe Amato.
The thing ran real good out in the mid-range, seemed like.
You lost lane choice.
Oh, I did.
Yeah. Frank Hawley has.
Not too cool. But it doesn't seem to make that much difference here.
Eddie Hill. Nothing bothers that man.
On the starting line, Kenny Bernstein wants to pad his points lead. He's coming around, getting ready to race in the semifinals at the Fallnationals.
One of the winningest funny car drivers in history. He has won the last 3 Winston crowns consecutively. But right now, there's a young man named Mike Dunn who's out to stop him from earning any more points today.
This is the semifinal round of the Fallnationals. Kenny Bernstein in the near lane. Mike Dunn in the far lane. Dunn coming off his big win just 2 weeks ago down in Houston, Texas. Bernstein now having put away his closest competitor in the Winston Championship, Mark Oswald, wants to extend that lead to give him some safety cushion going into the finals just a week away. Dale Armstrong and the crew on Kenny's car are dedicated to performance, but they also place a high priority on safety.
Everybody remembers Kenny Bernstein's frightening fire at Maple Grove Raceway last season, especially Kenny Bernstein. Well, after examining the car after the fire and talking to Kenny, crew chief Dale Armstrong found out Kenny never had time to hit the fuel shutoff. His priorities were to activate the fire bottles, which are located at the front of the car, those red fire extinguishers, and to get on the brakes, try to get it stopped so he could get out. Talking to other drivers who had had fires recently, the same thing was found out. They never hit the fuel shutoff, didn't have the time, so fuel continued to feed the fire. Well, Dale Armstrong and fuel systems expert Sid Waterman have come up with a very simple and effective device. Bernstein's car is the only one now that has it. Now, as the propellant from the fire extinguishers comes up here through this line, that this is headed to protect Kenny Bernstein inside the car. They've tapped in a new fitting and this little braided line that goes to this piston. Anytime the fire extinguishers are activated, that same pressure causes this piston to rise and shuts off both of these fuel pumps. Now, this is not some speed secret they want to hang on to. These will be manufactured for everybody by next year, and I can't imagine a nitro funny car driver who wouldn't want this.
Steve, I can't imagine one either. And by the way, Kenny Bernstein was A-OK after that explosion and fire a year ago at the Keystone Nationals. Right now, he is concerned with defeating Mike Dunn.
You think he's a little more relaxed now, right now, Dave, than he was against Mark Oswald?
Well, he's got less than a round of racing separating him from Oswald at this point. You can't relax too much.
Absolutely not. He's up against a tough customer that has a hot head. Mike Dunn relished that winner's circle at Houston, and he wants that experience again. Dunn away first.
Dunn uses the whole shot to upset Kenny Bernstein. Bernstein had the quicker elapsed time, 5.51. But look at the time for Dunn, 5:53. The advantage at the starting line was just a hair over 2/100ths of a second. That's what made the race as close as it was. As we look again in replay, you can see by just a little over 2/100ths of a second on our reaction timer, Mike Dunn got off the starting line ahead of Kenny Bernstein. Try as he might, Bernstein could not pull back on Dunn enough. And there, by just a few inches, Mike Dunn goes into the final.
Mike Dunn goes into his second NHRA National Event final round in a row. Tremendous job.
Loving every minute of it.
It is fun, isn't it?
Yeah, he has a lot of fun in getting beat. We've had our ups and downs this year, but we've stuck with it, and it's coming around.
And you just dated Mark Oswald's cause a little bit. He said he went over to you and said, don't run it to the last light if you don't have to. Don't take my speed points away.
Yeah, he told me that, but on that run, I knew Kenny was close. I had to drive out the back line. I don't think we got his mile an hour, but I wasn't worried about shutting off early that run.
Great job. The track is going to change. It's cooling off. The sun is going down. What do you expect?
I think the air will get a little bit better, and our car, we still got our plenty soft. We tried to step it up against fourth, second round. Obviously, it couldn't handle it, so we softened it back up for that run, and we'll just look at everything for next round and see what happens.
I know you will. It's a good crew.
Mike Dunn will race the winner of this pair. It is Chuck Etchells in the far lane. In the near lane, Tom Hoover in the Champion Auto Stores Pontiac Trans Am Firebird.
And these are two racers, David, that haven't made it to the semifinals in a long, long time. So they're having a great day to get to this point. And there is the crew coming down to console Kenny Bernstein. I'm not sure there's anything that can be said that will do that. So the Winston Points title will go down to the final race of the year in Pomona, California.
The crewman activating the switch that turns on the onboard recording device, the computer on Chuck Etchells' car. Tom Hoover staging in the near lane. Hoover with a big advantage over Etchells goes into the final round. Surprising performances out of Tom Hoover. The time, 5.49 seconds. And Hoover will have the lane choice over Mike Dunn in the finals. What a shocker this is at the Fall National. Tom Hoover, over 25 years at the wheel of a drag racing vehicle, into the finals against Mike Dunn at the Fall Nationals. Arizona. We're at the 4th annual running of the Castrol GTX Fall Nationals, and Steve is with a surprise finalist, Tom Hoover.
You know, Tom, as long as you've been doing this, it's still a thrill anytime you can go to the final round.
It definitely is, and the competition, all the guys at a race of any nature in NHRA right now, that's what keeps us all guys going. It's so close and so competitive. It's just fun.
Now, 5:49 is going to give you a chance to maybe hit it out of this ballpark.
I'm going to try. Thank you.
It's been since 1979 since Tom Hoover saw the winner's circle at an NHRA championship drag racing event. On the starting line now, semifinal time in Pro Stock Eliminator. Bob Glidden in the Ford, Bruce Allen at the wheel of the Chevrolet. The burnout procedure conducted by all cars in competition. It gets those big tires as hot as possible to provide the traction to get them down the racetrack. There's a lot of equipment utilized behind the scenes at one of these events. Steve took a look.
You know, often we talk about NHRA's Safety Safari and the many emergency services they render. And we've talked before about their staff of EMTs and medical doctors, always on the scene. But there's one other piece of equipment at every NHRA national event, a very expensive one, an Aerovac helicopter, literally a flying emergency room. And normally they come in one color, hospital white, but not here in colorful Phoenix. Bearing the proud bird of the valley is a Bocal Messerschmitt helicopter. It's twin turbine, capable of speeds of about 130 knots. Of course, the most important aspect is right here. These wide doors swing open. An injured driver can be at the hospital in just a matter of minutes. But there's another service that these helicopter crews have rendered all season long, and that's taking that camera up there, so we can give you aerial views of these fine facilities. We'd like to thank the crew of this chopper and all the choppers all season long that have helped us so very much.
Truly a most important service. The quality of the artwork on the signs and posters definitely improving. Bob Glidden for president.
I think that'd make a great first lady.
I guarantee you Washington would never be the same. We're riding with Bob Glidden as he brings his car into the staging beams to race Bruce Allen. Lots of RPM out of those 500 cubic inch gas burning engines. He pulls away from Bruce Allen and goes into the final round with a 7.45 second elapsed time. His speed over 186 miles an hour. The Pontiac Firebird thunders out of a cloud of smoke. That is Nick Nicholas getting ready for his run against Warren Johnson. Nicholas has got a great challenge ahead of him, as Johnson has had consistently the quicker elapsed times of the two. First this race, then the challenge for the winner here to meet Bob Glidden.
Well, the man from Whiteland continues to just ravage this pro stock field. A beautiful 745. The probe is still undefeated.
Yes, but I'm anxious to see what Johnson goes. We made a really nice run then. I think the starting line was a little better. The sun's gone down. I don't know exactly what happened to Bruce. He's been running really well, but the probe came through again. You know, we need one more round here today, Steve. The sun's about to blind me.
You're just about to get it. Thank you.
Thank you.
The shadows beginning to lengthen here at Firebird Raceway as Bob Glidden signing an autograph for a fan who somehow made it down to where Steve Evans is. Nick Nicholas in the near lane. In the far lane is Warren Johnson.
That kid didn't ask me for my autograph.
Maybe I ought to build you a race car.
I'll tell you, we got two fine race cars on the starting line. The Oldsmobile of Warren Johnson, based on elapsed time turned all day, has got to be a big favorite if Warren leaves on time. Nicholas putting a little pressure on him, letting him stage first and think about it for a while.
The psychological battle being conducted. Warren Johnson gives up, and he rolls into the staging beams. Now Nicholas is ready, and Nicholas has got the advantage. But it does not last for long as Warren Johnson goes into the finals to race Bob Glidden. His elapsed time, 7.46 seconds. His speed, 186 miles an hour. As we look again in replay, you know Bob Glidden was watching as Warren Johnson quickly pulled away from Nick Nicholas, indicating he got a lot of good traction right at the start, which makes him very competitive in that final race against Glidden. At the finish line, the margin of victory well over a car length for WJ Warren Johnson. Going into the final round with Bob Glidden, the two cars are separated by only 100th of a second, and that advantage goes to Bob Glidden. He will use it to select the lane that he wants to race in. Steve?
You know, you ran an outstanding 746, but it just misses lane choice by 100th, but you know you can run with that probe.
Oh, yeah. I don't think there's that much difference between the lanes right now. We made some changes just to see what would happen, just in case we won in this round, be ready for the final. I think we're in good shape.
You know, I think every pro stock driver would like to be able to say, I was the first to beat that probe.
I will be.
Whoa. It's been thrown, that gauntlet they talk about.
Well, Steve, we'll see in that classic pro stock final coming up just a bit later. This is George Hoover. You remember earlier I told you about the long career of Tom Hoover and the Ma and Pa Hoover cars? Well, that's the Pa. He is 2 years old and still active in his son's race car.
or you want a little more than moonlight. So the lights are on here at Firebird International Raceway Park. I'm Steve Evans along with Dave McClelland. We are down to the finals in all three of our pro categories. But earlier during this event, sportsman titles were decided. In alcohol funny car, it was Brad Anderson in the far lane up against Tommy Johnson Jr. in the near lane. Exactly like their Nitro cousins, except it's alcohol in the tank. 3-speed transmissions. Brad Anderson prevailed. Anderson had earlier defeated Pat Austin, already crowned the alcohol funny car Winston champ. Bad Brad is obviously back. So Anderson had his trophy in hand. It was time for the alcohol dragsters, and they're a first ever win for Cruz Pedregon, a second-generation drag racer. David Nickens, a world champion. He scored again in competition. Superstock went to Phil Webb. Jim Wald, who's been racing forever in Stock Eliminator, he won again. Ronnie Loomis won the super competitive Super Gas, and in Super Combat was the Oldsmobile of Albert Padron.
When you talk about super competitive drivers and car builders, nobody equaled Warren Johnson and Bob Glidden. Glidden with the Ford Probe, Johnson with the Oldsmobile. Not only do they go at each other on the racetrack, but also over the configuration of these race cars.
Well, absolutely. Both have devoted their adult lives to pro stock drag racing. Glidden wants an edge with a Probe. Warren Johnson wants to counter, maybe make a rules change to equalize that or try to get his windshield a little lower, as low as the Probe. So they go at it on and off the racetrack.
These two certainly keep the rules enforcers of NHRA drag racing busy. Johnson in the Oldsmobile is in the near lane. Bob Glidden has the lane choice. He's taking the far lane. And a brilliant start for Glidden. In high gear, he just motors away and takes the Pro Stock Championship 7.45 seconds to a losing 7:47. Glidden had a slight advantage at the start. Here's the high five. That's the family five, as is evidenced by Billy and Rusty Glidden, the two sons of Bob and Etta. This family operation has certainly paid off in this new Probe.
The best start for Bob Glidden in a long time. He was ready for Warren Johnson, and he left with a nice advantage.
As they neared the finish line, that advantage grew even more. And Bob Glidden, as we look at this replay, crossed the finish line almost a full car length ahead of Warren Johnson and took the title.
Well, when you put a great driver in a great race car, you've got a pretty tough combination. Congratulations, Fall Nationals champion, 7:45.
Thank you, Steve. I don't know about the great driver bit, you know.
You were that time.
Well, we've not won many races because of my driving. I think we won a lot of races because of our team and the whole concept of how we go about racing. But, you know, I said it in the semifinals, it's really amazing to us. We felt fortunate going to Houston with the new car, the Probe, and sidelining the Thunderbird, and went in that race a little edgy and came out a winner. We came here and it came through again for us. So this is a great win, Steve. I mean,
to already have the championship under your belt.
Hey, you know, the championship was over last week. Actually, it was over 2 or 3 races ago. You know, we come here to try to win the races, and guys like Johnson gives us a little extra incentive, especially Johnson. He's been crying and moaning and complaining about everything, about the new car and some of the things. And
that's part of the business.
That's right, it is. But, you know, he really gives you more incentive to win.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bob Glidden adding to the points total that has already earned him an incredible 9th Winston Championship. Warren Johnson's in second place, Tony Christian's in third, Bruce Allen followed by Butch Leal. On the starting line, our two finalists in Top Fuel getting suited up. Eddie Hill will go against Frank Hawley, the Top Fuel champion, soon to be crowned at the Castrol GTX Fall Nationals.
Scheduled to be completed in daylight hours. The fans are in for a real treat. The nitro burners are spectacular at night. I'm Steve Evans along with Dave McClelland, and it's time for the final round between the fastest accelerating vehicles in the world, the Top Fuel dragsters of the Texan, Eddie Hill, and the Professor, Frank Hawley.
The lane choice in this race is going to Hawley, and that is a bit of a surprise. Throughout the event, marked by the low qualifying time of a 5:06. Eddie Hill had been considered the dominant force, but Hawley surprised everybody in that semifinal round when he gained an advantage by virtue of the lower lap time and selected the far lane of the racetrack.
I have a feeling when Buzzy Carter got back and read the computer printout out of Eddie Hill's car, he found that clutch was much too loose, in the middle of the clutch range, 200-300 feet off the starting line. If you remember, David, in the finals, behind the yellow car, there was so much black clutch dust, it looked like a diesel locomotive.
The Super Shop car of Eddie Hill is the quickest dragster in the world. He has run as quick as a 4.93 second elapsed time. We are not seeing those fours at this track because an elevation of 1,300 feet thins out the air. There's just not the oxygen in the air that allows them to make that horsepower. The one thing you will note, you saw it on the burnout, is the huge header flames showing out of the engines as they accelerate away from the starting line. As these motors come under power, what you see now is a vapor mist of unburned fuel. Lights off as they blaze their way down this Firebird Raceway quarter mile.
Now, if you want to know who leaves first without us even telling you, just watch for the header flame, because at night you can't hide your reaction times.
The indicator for the drivers are the lights on the top of the Christmas tree. 2 lights on each side of the track indicate the cars are set. And then Starter Buster Couch throws the switch. A green light shows and the 2 cars are gone. They're set. And Frank Hawley leaves first. But look at Eddie Hill drive past him. His crew chief, Fuzzy Carter, showing the emotion of a victory. Eddie Hill, for the second week in a row, wins a big one. 5.07 seconds elapsed time. His speed, 276 miles an hour.
You know, 3 weeks ago, Eddie Hill was all but broke out of parts and pieces. Since that time, or in that time, he has won over $200,000 with performances just like this.
The advantage, as you saw, went to Frank Hawley by nearly 0.03 of a second. Hawley left the starting line ahead of Eddie Hill, but at the finish line, a full car length separated the two, and Eddie Hill, his crew, heading down to pick him up, receiving the accolades of this crowd. The Funny Car Final and an interview with Eddie Hill coming up next. Castrol GTX Fallnationals, and it is 2 teams that have been around this sport for more than 2 decades. Joe Pisano, the Pisano brothers, started back in Southern California in the late 1950s. Their first car was a Model A coupe with a Chevy motor. Against him is the surprising Tom Hoover, who goes back to the early days of Top Fuel dragsters when the engine sat out in front of the driver. Hoover and the entire Hoover family quite proud of their exploits here with a 5.49 second elapsed time in the semifinals. He has the choice of lanes. There's a happy man at the far end of this racetrack. He's the Top Fuel champ. Steve Evans is with him.
You know, they talk about the cowboys riding off into the sunset. Well, the beautiful Arizona sunset behind you, Eddie Hill, 5:07, 2 in a row. Magnificent.
All right, 07 and an 06. Boy, that nuclear banana works pretty good some places.
Tell us about the race with Hawley.
I think Frank was out on me. I was looking, it seemed like the back of his car till a 3rd track, maybe even half track. And then when I got all the events done and got on the lean out button, I just pulled away. I don't know how much we got him by, but he dropped out of sight. He must have run awful good. I was planning on a 12 out of him.
Well, you ran the number it took to win. We've got funny cars coming right down our throats. Let's get out of here.
Maybe we ought to move. Thank you.
Sure.
One thing about Eddie Hill, he certainly is an observant man. Time to move. As the funny cars doing their dry burnouts at the starting line, Mike Dunn testing the amount of traction available.
We have seen very few dry burnouts at this event for funny cars or dragsters. It used to be a ritual for everyone. Anybody with a 2-speed, well, they still do them. If you have the high gear only unit, the clutch, it's too hard on the clutch, it gets it too hot.
This is George Hoover. Hard as it is to believe, he was 30 years old when Eddie Hill was born. After the semifinals, Steve had a chance to talk with him about his role in the Hoover racing operation.
The motor that's in Tom Hoover's car that just ran 5:49, Tom tells me that you built this engine, George, and you're darn proud of it.
I think I've built every one of them for the last 25 years.
Well, it's taken 25 years for this kid of yours to amount to something.
Do you think he ever will?
Well, I think maybe this afternoon.
Maybe I won't last that long, huh?
You're going to outlast all of us. Great job today, and good luck in the final round.
George Hoover, at the age of 82, probably with a better sense of humor than anybody else on this racetrack today. The Joe Pisano-owned Oldsmobile and driven by Mike Dunn has a shot at 2 in a row. He's in the far lane. But the surprise of this event has been Tom Hoover, and I think one of the keys to his success has been the utilization of the high gear only, the no transmission direct lockup clutch system that was installed in his car a couple of races ago. A tremendous battle, and Joe Pisano acknowledges the victory by Mike Dunn. His elapsed time, a 5.52 second run at over 264 miles an hour. Hoover losing at a 5:58, and the advantage at the starting line, as we look again, you can see it went to Mike Dunn. By nearly 0.04 of a second, Dunn left the starting line ahead of Tom Hoover, and that just extended as he worked his way down the racetrack till at the finish line, it was more than a car length. This has been the most productive season of Mike Dunn's racing career. 2 victories added to 2 previous wins for a total of 4. Steve?
Well, this has been a day for repeat victories. It was Mike Dunn and Eddie Hill sharing the winner's circle at the Super Nationals, and Bob Glidden, too. In fact, all 3 of you. You remember better than I do. Great job.
Thank you, boy. It was a tough race. We had a few problems before the final. Had a cracked oil pan, input shaft wouldn't go in. We didn't think we were ever going to get here, but thanks to the crew, Billy Meyer's crew helped us. Joe Pisano, Gary Slusher, what can I say? Tom King, Frank Pisano, the rest of the crew. I mean, they did an outstanding job. I was just long for the ride again.
You know, it's a crew of veterans with your guys and 80-some-odd-year-old George Hoover. The old guys proved they could still turn the wrenches and get it done.
Yeah, that's true. You know, Tom Hoover and George, his dad, George, did a heck of a job. I mean, they ran good, and I was probably more worried about him in the final than anybody because they were running consistent all day, and I knew I was going to have to cut her close to get them.
Everybody's going to the high gear only cars. Do you stick with this? Do you stick with this winner?
Well, I don't know. It's working pretty good, don't you think?
Absolutely.
Maybe we ought to stay with it. I don't know. JP Olds, they just must like that 2-speed.
Yeah, and a great job. Always a pleasure.
Thank you, Steve.
There's a real Italian celebration coming up down at the far end of the racetrack as Joe Pisano and the crew pull up to greet Mike Dunn. The funny car race is still tight for the Winston Championship. Less than 1 round of racing separate Bernstein and Oswald. In Top Fuel, 1,000 points between Joe Amato and the new number 2 man, Eddie Hill, going into the Winston finals just a week away. For Steve Evans, I'm Dave McClelland, saying so long from Firebird Raceway. The 1988 NHRA Castrol GTX Fall Nationals has been brought to you by Goodyear Eagle Tires. Goodyear, because there really is a difference. And by STP Oil Treatment. STP, the racer's edge. And by Castrol GTX Motor Oil, the motor oil engineered for today's smaller cars. The NHRA...